My parents forbade me from going to family events because I'm too happy while my sister chooses the wrong guy again. But I'd rather not invite them to my wedding, which will be a very joyful place. My older sister has clearly always been treated as the favorite in our family. It's not some quiet rumor, it's a cruel reality for me and for anyone who's ever tried to earn our parents' affection. I've already learned not to try anymore. But it still hurts when your parents show obvious favoritism, especially when that's not what you see in most other families. About 2 years ago, my sister started dating a new guy. She was thrilled about him and hoped he would be the one she'd marry. Before this relationship, she'd been with another guy for 5 years, but that ended badly because he cheated on her. It was a painful chapter in her life. So when she began seeing her new boyfriend, she felt hopeful again. Things seemed to be going better this time. She kept telling the whole family how much she liked him and how ready she was to settle down. She even said she was encouraging him to propose soon. From what I saw, she was desperate to marry him. The main issue in their relationship was the age difference. My sister is older than he is, and even though she was completely ready to commit and start a life together, he wasn't there yet. He needed more time. I had the chance to speak with him a few times, and from what I could tell, he was a genuinely good person. He came across as respectful, kind, and sincere. It's not that he didn't care about my sister, he just wanted to feel more stable in his own life before taking such a huge step like marriage. He wanted to focus on building his career and having a firmer foundation first, and honestly, you can't blame anyone for that. At that age, many of us felt the same way, wanting to be in a strong position before committing makes complete sense. But the truth is, my sister has always been incredibly impatient. She hates waiting for anything and expects things to go her way, always. It's been like that since we were kids. If she made up her mind about something, the rest of us, my parents and I, basically had no choice but to follow along. It was like her needs were always more important than everyone else's. If she wanted to do something, it didn't matter how it affected others. And if she wanted something expensive or out of reach, she didn't care whether our parents could really afford it, even if it meant they'd have to cut corners or go into debt. She still expected them to make it happen for her. She's used to getting her way and never considered that things might not go according to plan. As always, my sister kept insisting. She didn't care that her boyfriend needed more time, she wanted what she wanted, and she wanted it immediately. She kept pressuring him to propose, even though he had clearly told her he wasn't ready. Everything came crashing down when his grandmother passed away. It was a deeply emotional and sad time for his family. But instead of giving them the space to grieve, my sister did something outrageous. She went to speak with his mother, who had just lost her own mother, and asked her to give the grandmother's ring to her son so he could use it to propose. His mother was completely stunned. She was heartbroken, trying to process her loss, and there was my sister making demands and trying to take advantage of the situation. She was appalled. She saw just how pushy and completely tone-deaf my sister was being, and it left a horrible impression. That was supposed to be a time of mourning, but instead, my sister turned it into something about her and what she wanted. Later, when her boyfriend found out what she had done, he was furious. They had a huge argument, and he told her how wildly inappropriate and disrespectful it had been to go behind his back and involve his mother during such a painful time, all just to try to get her hands on the ring. He was deeply hurt that she would do something like that without even talking to him first. He made it clear that he didn't appreciate being pressured and that he had never agreed to propose, at least not yet. He said he didn't feel ready and that he felt like she was trying to force him into something he didn't want. My sister, of course, just couldn't understand. She kept pushing as always and refused to accept that he wasn't in the same place she was, no matter how plainly he said it. She simply couldn't accept that he didn't want to commit right then and there. In the end, he'd had enough. He broke up with her. He told her it wasn't just about the ring, it was her attitude, how she didn't listen, didn't respect him, not even now. It was too much for him, and he decided that the best thing he could do was walk away. Since the breakup, my sister has been staying at our parents' house, acting like she's completely shattered. She goes on and on about how much it hurts and how poorly her ex treated her. But instead of being honest about what really happened, she twists the story to make it sound like he was the one who failed her. She keeps saying things like he wasn't man enough to claim her as his wife, as if the only reason the relationship ended was because he was weak or afraid of commitment. She refuses to admit that maybe she was too forceful, or that she didn't respect his feelings, which just makes everything even harder for me. Because, as always, our parents are entirely on her side. But to them, she didn't do anything wrong. Instead of helping her reflect on her actions, they also believe her ex was entirely at fault for not proposing and act as if he led her on. They comfort her, praise her, and once again make her feel like she's perfect and the victim, no matter what actually happened. Then there's me. A while ago, I met my boyfriend and things moved quickly between us. Just a month ago, he proposed and I said yes. Honestly, I never imagined I'd be getting married so soon, but the truth is we're just perfect for each other. Last week, we went together to a family event. Everyone congratulated us on our engagement, including my parents, which felt nice. But there was one person who reacted differently, my sister. Later, she pulled me aside to talk privately, and to my surprise, she told me I should leave with my fiancé because I was only there to rub my happiness in her face. I had no intention of upsetting her or making her feel bad. I just wanted to celebrate some good news with my family. She told me it seemed suspicious that I got engaged this year, like it hadn't happened naturally. She said she believed I probably forced my partner to propose just to show off in front of her. Then she mocked me and added, "You're desperate. You probably begged him to propose. You've always wanted what I have, and now you're just trying to one-up me." Her accusations were so ridiculous that I couldn't even answer. With things like that, all you can really do is laugh, because it sounds absurd. But instead, I tried to calmly tell her that my partner genuinely loves me, and no one had to convince him to propose. It was something he wanted to do because he loves me deeply. I also told her that I understood she might be hurt or upset for some reason, but that my happiness had nothing to do with making her feel jealous or trying to compete. But instead of talking further or trying to understand me, she simply got angry and walked away without saying another word. It hurt, but I also felt I had done the best I could to be kind and honest with her. After that family event, my parents called me and told me something. They said my sister was still very upset with me, and although they didn't want to take sides, since her heart was broken, they felt that as parents they needed to support her more right now. Just another excuse to keep spoiling their favorite daughter. That's why they asked me to stop attending family events in the future, at least for now, until my sister said it was okay for me to come back. I laughed out loud. It had to be a joke, but it wasn't. And they weren't laughing. They were completely serious about that nonsense. They truly believed I basically shouldn't exist just because my happiness overshadowed my sister's. I told them how exhausted I was from always seeing them take my sister's side and never considering how I felt. I asked them what I had done wrong. How could my joy over my own engagement cause my sister to resent me so much? My mother replied that my sister was clearly hurting and not thinking straight right now. She said that in times like this, my sister really needed their support, and that I should be the one to show maturity and understanding. Then my father chimed in and said maybe I was being too sensitive and overreacting to something that wasn't such a big deal. They kept insisting that sometimes life asks us to make sacrifices, and that I should just let it go. They felt I was being selfish about all of this. My parents even said things like, "It's not always about your feelings. Other people have feelings too, you know. And you should be grateful that your sister still wants to be close to you, even if it's in the future." Since then, I've thought a lot. If they don't want me around because my happiness overshadows theirs, then I don't want their sadness overshadowing my moments either, including, very likely, my wedding. Update 1. Since I shared my story, many people have asked questions about what it was like growing up with my sister and how she behaved before. A lot of them want to understand whether this is just a recent problem or something that's been going on for a long time. Yes, my sister has always behaved this way. Even when we were little, she acted like she was the boss of everything. If she wanted to play a certain game or watch a specific TV show, it didn't matter what anyone else wanted, the rest of us had to drop what we were doing and do exactly what she said, or else she'd throw a tantrum. I remember one time when I was about 10 or 11 years old, she demanded that we wear matching clothes for a family photo. I didn't want to, because I've never liked wearing pink. But she screamed and cried nonstop until my parents gave in and forced me to wear that awful outfit. She didn't care if I was miserable, her happiness was all that mattered. It felt like living with a tiny dictator who used tantrums as a weapon to get what she wanted. One reason my parents have always seemed to favor my sister is probably because she's their firstborn. They put all their hopes and dreams into her, and maybe they see her as more important simply because she came first. I've heard from my grandparents that when I was born, my parents hadn't planned on having another child. I was the family surprise, and that made them love me less or not really care as much. It was as if I were just an extra, and since they already had the grand prize, I didn't matter at all. That's why my sister has had a special place in their hearts from the very beginning. Anything she wants or needs always takes priority, and that's not normal. I think everyone in the comments understands that. But my parents always have some excuse to justify favoring her, like saying I need to sacrifice things sometimes for her happiness. But that logic is twisted, because she never sacrifices anything for mine. I remember one time I accidentally broke a vase, and my parents got really angry at me. But when my sister did something similar, they just laughed or gave her a soft warning. The rules don't apply the same way to both of us. There are rules, and then there are her rules. I've tried talking to my sister before about how her behavior affects me, but it's really hard. She tends to shut down or get mad. That's how she was raised. One time when we were teenagers, I told her I felt like she never listened to me and always acted like her feelings were the only ones that mattered. Instead of trying to understand me, she yelled at me and got angry for making it all about me. That's always the pattern. When I talk about how I feel, she flips it around and makes me feel like I'm the problem. I've also tried getting my parents to see my side and treat me more fairly. When I was younger, I used to tell them I felt left out or that my sister was being unfair. But most of the time, they'd just tell me to be patient or to try to get along with her. They often reminded me that she was older and that I should respect her. But I don't know how to respect someone who's an adult in age but so immature in every other way. My sister mostly behaves this way with me, and sometimes with our parents. But with other relatives or friends, she can be extremely charming and sweet, which makes things even more confusing. It's like she has one face for the people she wants to control, and another for everyone else. I guess she's just ashamed to show her real self to outsiders. But with me and my parents? She's her true, awful self. I've thought about talking to a family therapist. I even suggested it once, but my sister and parents didn't want to. They said there was no need to involve a stranger, that we should just try to get along on our own. Honestly, I still think therapy could help, because it would give us a chance to speak openly with someone neutral. But for now, I don't think anyone else in the family is willing to take that step. And going alone might help me, but it wouldn't fix the conflict with my parents and sister, because they're the heart of the problem. Update 2. I finally decided to make a Facebook post to share how I felt and publicly call out my parents and my sister. In the post, I explained in detail how my family told me not to attend family events for now, because my sister was being jealous and petty after her breakup. I wrote about how I've always felt overlooked and ignored in this family, which isn't anything new. I wanted people to know just how unfair all of this felt, and that I wasn't being dramatic for no reason. I also wrote that I would respect their wishes and no longer attend family gatherings, from now on. It doesn't matter if my sister eventually feels well enough to allow me back. I'm done with them. If they couldn't respect me or my feelings, then I didn't want them in my life either. I told everyone that they didn't need to invite me to future family events, since clearly, my parents and my sister didn't want me there. I knew posting this would expose my family for what they'd done, showing how unfairly they treated me and how they pushed me aside. That's why I did it. Just a few hours after I posted it, my phone started blowing up. Relatives who saw the post called me, and most of them were furious with my parents and totally sided with me. They called my sister an idiot and my parents worse things. They all made it clear that they wanted me at their family gatherings no matter what my parents said, and that maybe my parents should be the ones staying home if they're upset. I felt good, because people were finally seeing their true colors. And now, everyone's on my side. But then, my sister and my parents started calling me over and over again. They were furious that I had exposed them and wanted me to delete everything while also making a retraction post, a post that, by the way, would be reviewed by them first so they could analyze its contents. So, I took a photo of my middle finger and told them they could start by evaluating this message. I told them that if they felt ashamed by what I had posted, if that post caused them pain, maybe it was time they started treating their other daughter like a human being, not an object created to serve her sister's selfish desires. I wasn't going to hide the truth just because it made them uncomfortable. I was ready to rain more truth on people, so they could finally see my parents and my sister for who they truly were, and had always been. But I wasn't lying. I was being honest. And honesty is a good quality to have. Let's just say my parents and sister are now facing a lot of backlash. Relatives are questioning everything, asking them why they've always treated one daughter differently from the other, and how they could possibly ask me not to attend family events just so my sister wouldn't throw the biggest tantrum in the room. This situation didn't steal my joy, in fact, it has only made my happiness grow. For years, I settled for living in the background. But now that I've been told not to show up to family events, I felt it was only fair to let the rest of the family know, and to explain why. And if that makes me the bad one? Well, I think I'm actually enjoying it. Because being the bad one means I'm finally the one putting my parents and my sister in their place. Update 3. Hi. It hasn't even been a full day since everything exploded with my Facebook post, and I think I rushed posting my previous update, because my sister showed up at my house. She used the emergency key I had given to my parents a long time ago and walked in like she owned the place. From the moment I saw her face, I knew she had come to stir up drama. That's why she used the key. She started screaming at me the moment she stepped inside. She was angry that everyone now saw who they really were, but I think she was even more upset that no one was on her side anymore. No one was telling her, "Poor baby, here's your favorite toy. Let's spoil you until your eyelashes fall off." She told me I had humiliated her and our parents in front of everyone, and now they were heartbroken and stressed by the family's reaction. Then she said something that honestly left me speechless. She demanded that I go door to door and issue a public apology. She wanted me to explain to everyone that what I had written wasn't true, and that I would have to put on my best face while explaining it to each relative in their own homes so they'd believe me. According to her, I had gone too far by inventing family problems online, and now I needed to fix it, because, in her words, the rest of the family wasn't as smart as they were and that's why they believed it. She stood in my living room, furious and dramatic, acting like I had ruined her life just for being mean, with no proof. But recording that conversation, well, that would soon become my proof. I just let her talk. At first, I tried to stay calm, let her go on, because she was saying some very interesting things. Things people would want to hear. No, let me rephrase, things they wouldn't want to hear, but absolutely needed to. So I kept her talking to see how much more she was willing to say. I told her, firmly and clearly, that she had no right to come into my house without permission. I wanted her to admit she had come uninvited, and that she had no one but herself to blame for the consequences of her own actions. I reminded her that I had every right to talk about how I'd been treated, and I wasn't going to apologize for telling the truth. I told her that just because she didn't like facing the consequences of her behavior didn't mean I had done anything wrong. I told her she needed to grow up and start taking responsibility for how she treats people, including me. I made it clear that she's not the only person in the world who's allowed to feel hurt or disappointed. And I was done staying silent just to keep the peace. That's when she snapped even more. She screamed, "You don't have the right to get married before I do." I asked her, "Are you saying I should wait to get married just because the princess is offended she's going second?" She said yes. She kept going, "You don't even have a real relationship. He doesn't actually love you. You forced him. I'm sure you manipulated him into proposing. Don't get too excited, because once he sees who you really are, he's going to leave you, just like mine left me." And then she said something even worse. She threatened to talk to my fiancé, to expose me. He deserves to know who he's really marrying. I'll make sure he sees what kind of person you are. I asked her what she meant by that, and she just gave me this smug little smile, that expression that says, "I know something that could hurt you." She called me manipulative, said I was just pretending to be sweet and innocent to get what I wanted. She called me selfish, said I only thought about myself and never about how my actions affected others, especially her. She told me I was just craving attention. That everything I did was to steal her spotlight. Then she went even further. She told me I didn't deserve the love or support I was getting, not from my fiancé or anyone else. According to her, it was all fake. That he was just blinded for now, but eventually he'd see the truth. She claimed that sooner or later, he would realize I wasn't who he thought I was, and he'd leave me the moment he saw the real me. She also said that once people saw what kind of sister I really was, karma, the universe, all of it, would come together to show them that she was the sister who actually mattered. And that all the men would finally start looking at her. I asked her who all those men were. Were they with us in the room? Could only she see them? I told her she could go ahead and tell my fiancé whatever she wanted. It would be interesting to see who he believed, the sister who tries to control her boyfriends and pressures them into proposing, or the one who got proposed to without ever suggesting it. I hit her with some words of my own, but they needed to be said. That's why all your boyfriends end up leaving you, because you can't stop trying to control everything and everyone around you. You push people away with that attitude. And it's going to leave you all alone. She fired back, "You're the one who'll end up alone. Just wait and see." I told her to give me back my house key and leave immediately, because I never wanted her entering again. She left, slamming the door and yelling things as she walked away. Since that confrontation, I blocked my sister and my parents on every possible platform. I've even blocked them from sending smoke signals, don't ask me how, because until I patent it, I'm not revealing my methods. But yes, they can't contact me, at least not digitally. And as for the recording? I just hit publish. I'm writing this update while people are still listening to it. The conversation is a bit long, so I've got at least 10 more minutes before they hear the whole thing. After that, the flood of calls and messages will begin. Update 4. The recordings have been very revealing. Calling our relatives idiots has had major consequences for my sister, and by extension, for my parents. Everyone is now going after her, and with good reason. Going door to door now to clarify that it was all a lie? That's not going to help her much. Oops. That path is no longer available to her. So far, they've all stayed quiet. I think they're scared I'll use anything they say or send against them. The fun part has been reading the comments under the post. Some family members said they always knew my sister wasn't the brightest, and that saying those things while being recorded proved it. Also, saying others weren't smart enough because they believed my lies only showed the opposite, because they weren't lies. They were just believing what actually happened. If they had believed what I wrote was fake, then yes, they'd be like my sister. But they didn't, because it wasn't fake. So now, things have gotten delicious. Edit, I've already changed my house locks. Update 5. It's been a few months since my last update, and a lot has happened since then. I'm now married. Just to give you an idea, that's one thing that's happened. A small detail. Well, not so small for me. It was something I had looked forward to for a long time, and I'm happy. It just hasn't made my immediate family happy. But you know how they get when they're not the center of attention. My parents and my sister were not invited. I don't think that needs any explanation, my previous posts have made that abundantly clear. I didn't want any drama at my wedding. Honestly, I don't even know if my sister would have agreed to come anyway, so there was no real loss. But my parents didn't like it. Not one bit. That I didn't invite them to my special day. I don't understand why. If they didn't want to see me happy while my sister was feeling miserable, well, then they didn't see it. Because they weren't there. But that didn't stop them from getting upset about it. They went around telling other people how deeply hurt and offended they were. They're ungrateful. Because if they were happy for me, that might make my sister feel bad. And yet when I make them unhappy, they're still offended. No one can understand them. They said they felt disrespected because I didn't invite them to the wedding. They were especially angry because I asked others not to tell them anything about it. It was obvious they felt betrayed, left out, and excluded, and they didn't hold back from venting it. But I didn't want my happiness to reach them. That was a huge act of love and concern on my part. As for my sister, my parents only found out about the wedding after some of my cousins posted photos on social media. Until then, they had no idea what was happening. I wasn't going to respond. But with everything they had said to others about me, I figured a few words were warranted. I used email, so I could reply without having to unblock them or read their responses. I told them I didn't invite them because weddings are joyful, cheerful events, and they were under a strict happiness quarantine. It would have been insensitive of me not to consider that and to invite them anyway. Doing so would have been like inviting a vegan to a barbecue. Or like inviting someone whose boyfriend dumped her for being too intense to the wedding of her sister who just got engaged. I told them I took their happiness abstinence very seriously and that I only wanted what was best for them, which, clearly, was for them to be the most miserable people in the world. And while I had already achieved some of that by not inviting them, I was praying my sister would take care of the rest. I told them I could have shared details about the wedding, about how much everyone enjoyed themselves, but I don't like being cruel. In fact, we even thought of my sister and the difficult time she was going through. That's why, in her honor, no one danced the entire night. We had a moment of weakness when some upbeat music came on, but we all stayed seated. No one dared move a foot to the rhythm of the music. Anyone who tried was given a sharp look of disapproval. And at the end of my message, I wrote one last thing: not even the cake was good. It tasted like my sister's entitled tears. You know what that tastes like. You've been licking it your whole lives. If they responded, I have no idea, all their emails go straight to spam. Update 6. People don't ask me for updates anymore, they just ask if my parents are still miserable. And honestly? I don't know how to answer that, because I haven't had contact with them in a long time. Eventually, I did read their email response, and it was something like, "Young lady, sarcasm doesn't suit you. Blah blah blah." My sister still hasn't found a boyfriend, which does not surprise me at all. I can picture her on every date, telling the guy within the first 20 minutes that she wants to get married. So I think it's a pretty safe bet to say my sister is single and unhappy. And my parents are too. They're not invited to family events. There's too much joy at those gatherings. And that, too, must be a source of misery for them. A source of unhappiness, my sister. A source of unhappiness, not being invited. A source of unhappiness, being my parents. My diagnosis? They're just unhappy people.